Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Let Go of Doubt and Be the Leader of Your Life. We are going to be talking about how you can get results, but with more joy. We'll also hit on what could get in the way and what can inspire you to take charge of your life. So if you want to follow along, there is a link to the play sheets in the chat. And just some quick reminders before we get started. Please type any comments in the chat and I can check periodically, or Marissa, please flag me down if you see something. And we'll have a couple moments to be interactive throughout the webinar. And then at the end, we'll have time to check in with any other questions as things are simmering a little bit for you. So stay tuned. And we have some special offers at the end. So I'd like to introduce myself and share a little bit more about my journey. So I'm Rosie Guagliardo, the founder of Inner Brilliance Coaching, and I've loved being a certified life and career coach since 2007. I'm also a member of Forbes Coaches Council and a contributing author to a book entitled Turning Point Moments. And it actually became an Amazon bestseller, so that was exciting. And previously, I was in marketing and advertising for 18 years, working closely with companies such as McDonald's, Anheuser-Busch, and Unilever. So I was on my journey and I decided to combine all of my learnings from my ad experience, my coaching certifications, along with my Northwestern Psych degree to support high-achieving people discover an easier way of living, where they can actually get the results they want for their life and their career, but with more ease, joy, and grace, versus what I felt like I experienced in the past and many of my clients have experienced, which is feeling anxious and exhausted on their journey. So if this sounds like something you want, I know I can help you be what I like to call a happier high achiever. So if you're here, I assume you're self-aware and you know how to set goals and achieve results. And even though you might be successful in that way in some areas of your life, we all know life doesn't at times feel, let's say, as easy or as joyful as we'd like. And again, sometimes it could even feel stressful and exhausting to keep after the goals we've set and the lives we've built for ourselves or the lives we're trying to pursue, right? We have these high ambitions. We're setting the stage for all these things to happen. And then we might be in the middle of it and going, how are we going to do all of this? So I'm happy to tell you that it doesn't have to feel this hard. And it really is possible to get results you're excited about while having much more fun and flow along the way to achieving what you want. The first step is understanding why we might start feeling that excessive stress as we strive for success. So now we typically attribute stress to the circumstances in our lives, right? What's going on around us. And although that, might be the case at times, of course it is, if we're really being open to seeing it, stress can often also involve some component of doubt, either doubt in ourselves or doubting deep down that we might be pursuing goals for the wrong reasons and potentially not aligning with what we really want. So just keep those in mind, those forms of doubt. And as you keep those in mind, either, the stress that comes with doubting yourself or doubting your choices. Because what I'd like to do next is ask you, where do you think your doubt is coming from, right? So think about some times in the past when you were pursuing certain goals, or maybe there's a big goal right now you're pursuing, and you experienced, again, some doubt that led to feeling stressed. Would you say it more often comes from, one, a feeling of just doubting yourself? And you could put this in the chat if you don't mind putting like 1, 2, or 3. I'm going to share the options. Did it feel like you weren't really sure that you were experienced enough for a job you wanted? Or again, just questioning, not trusting yourself. Or is the stress and doubt more often coming from goals that weren't really aligned with your deepest desires? I often work with high achievers, like I said, who can get the results they desire, but then they're thinking, gosh, I don't even know if this is what I want. I have a very simple example from my personal life where every year I wanted to lose 10 pounds. And guess what? Guess who did not lose 10 pounds every year? I'm like, I'm just going to eat some pasta now. I'll lose 10 pounds tomorrow. And that's okay, right? It just realized I wasn't really caring about the way I looked at that much. I had to find a different reason, a different why. And when it comes to pursuing a job or a promotion, is it the right field? I love it. You all know it's coming from both, right? I'm like, you know what number 3 is. Is it coming from both? So today we're going to talk about how to minimize these feelings of doubt. And in all of the cases, whichever type of doubt you chose, you might be noticing how it's really your approach to life and more specifically, your way of thinking that could be getting in your way and causing you to feel that stress. So today we'll talk about an approach to life and a way to take charge of your life to achieve the goals you want that might sound very different than what you're used to. But I'm going to show you how it can be just much more powerful and even easier. So again, what many of us have understandably been doing is trying to look outside of ourselves to find the causes of that stress and doubt we feel. Yet, where do all of our thoughts and feelings that lead to stress come from? Within, right? So the other approach I'm sharing with you, it just goes to the root of where your thoughts and feeling come from, which is yourself. And we're simply switching the area of focus from outside to the source. And this might sound like a subtle switch of looking from the outside to the inside, but it's so important. And let me tell you, I didn't used to think this way. I mean, I always knew on some level that I had an impact on my happiness. And while doubt and stress obviously crept into my life more than I wanted to admit, what did I do? I just kept pushing through, working hard, trying to make progress towards my goals. But I knew something was missing. Something just didn't feel right until I flipped the switch to go within. So I want to share how I did it and the benefits from this switch that you can all experience. So similar, probably many of you, I've always been, like I said, this hard worker. You might even say somewhat of a perfectionist. And one day, it's in my 20s, I'm like, I finally have it all. At least appeared that way on the outside, right? I thought my hard work had paid off. I'd gotten married, and then I was living in a cute condo overlooking the lake, and I had a fun job in advertising. That's me and one of the roller coaster rides when I was working for Anheuser-Busch theme parks. I wasn't a big roller coaster person, but that's a pretty fun business trip if you have to go away for work. So here I was getting to work on some big brands, and I just found myself exhausted all the time as I continued to work hard and chase certain goals. I always felt like I had to get in that better shape, try for my next promotion, and have a better marriage. And while pursuing these goals, I often felt this low level of anxiety as I tried to get everything done on my to-do list. And it was like life was whizzing past me, trying to see friends, support my family, and get my work done. And honestly, my life just didn't feel as fun as it could. And it felt like having goals defeated the point of achieving them, which is to feel happier, right? That's why we have these goals. Once I achieve them, I'll be happier. And it hit me, it felt like life was happening to me versus through me, where I was always in reaction mode to the next thing. Yet I thought, I really want to be the leader in my life. I don't want to be in this reaction mode. And I just wasn't enjoying the process of going for my goals, and they just felt hard. So that's when I knew I had to make changes in my life. I just couldn't sustain this level of tension and feeling overwhelmed. And these feelings made me realize that what I was doing was chasing what I thought I wanted or what I thought I should do. And some of you know me, I've made this terrible joke before, but we need to stop shoulding on ourselves, right? Stop shoulding on yourself. So what happened was I was going for certain goals and I wasn't even excited about them. And that's because I was basing my happiness on other people's definition of success. And I was just forcing myself to go for whatever goal I had set, like that prestigious job or losing the 10 pounds, like I said earlier. And underneath it, I was letting a mindset of limiting beliefs run my life versus focusing on what's really possible for my life. And then for some other goals I was actually excited about, I just noticed I kept doubting that I could even achieve them. So there I was again, letting negative thoughts such as not being good enough impact the way I acted. Remember, I was kind of in reaction mode, and that ultimately was shaping my life. And in this way of thinking was really just constantly draining my energy. It became the main obstacle that was getting in the way of achieving my goals or even feeling good about them. So in those moments, I didn't feel like I was in charge of my life. And that's when I set out on a path to explore what was truly important to me and what I desired. Essentially, what was my truth, so that I could have that life I was inspired to live daily, one where I could wake up and be excited to go for my day. I promise it's possible. And that's when the transformation happened for me. After I better understood who I really was, not only my desires, but also those thoughts that held me back. We don't want to, repress those. We want to understand them. Then I was able to more easily honor what was important for me. I started shifting my focus to align with what's not only true for me, but I was putting my truth out there more. My best self was showing up. And when I did that, the shoulds in my life started to decrease. So what was left was me. And that's allowing me to focus more on my desires and who I wanted to be. So does that make sense, right? Once I started releasing these limiting beliefs, more of you is available. And with less resistance on my part and more of the real me out there, I started to attract and eventually experience what I deeply desired for my life. But here's the best part. It was in a more natural and organic way, in a more exciting way, not like that over-engineering way. So hopefully you can see some similarities from my story in your own life and recognize there can be another approach for living life where you can experience what you desire, but with less struggle. And it will include getting to know yourself better, all aspects of you. It'll also include living a life aligned with your truth, right? We're going to get rid of the shoulds. And that way you'll feel in charge of your life and you can attract more results. So I know that sounds pretty simple, right? Well, what we're going to do with the time we have left is we'll focus on some actual ways to start making the shift towards a life filled with more joy and ease. And it'll include 2 exercises that start with shining a light on your truth, the real you, including different aspects of you. So in other words, we're going to look at who you're being at your best, and honestly, when maybe you're not at your best, and how that influences your actions. So here's our agenda. We're going to start by showing you what holds you back from being that real best self right now. Okay, what's showing up for you? And basically understanding how the negative thoughts and statements, I like to call them self-limiting beliefs, how they really hold you back. Then we'll move on to better understanding another side of you, what I'll call your real best self. Some might call it your higher self. You'll see different terms for it. But with this awareness, it can inspire you to be that person and go for your desires. So you can start sharing your truth more confidently in all areas of your life. And you can start letting this side of your life lead you. And then we'll end with some ways to support you. So what you might notice is that you might lean towards the first exercise of understanding what holds you back, because it takes some practice to get to know this other side of you that could be your leaders. And today we're just skimming the surface with these exercises. So I'll share some ways at the end of our time together where you can continue your efforts for inspiration after we're done here. But before I share the exercises, we're going to get in a little bit of background about how our thoughts work and how we can begin to mitigate the ones that hold you back. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's our way of thinking that could get in the way of our happier life. So, let's take a look at our overall thoughts and really how the mind works. So, I have another question for you. Can you share with me, or in the chat actually, how many thoughts a day you think you have? Now, there were studies that showed this answer back in the day. Yes, thousands, 1,000 plus. Yes. So I'm going to share the amount that I heard back in the day because I think it's still true. I studied psychology. Studies show something new all the time, but you'd have to look at the methodology. So they said back in the day, yes, tens of thousands. Marissa, you know this. They use 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Okay, let's pretend that study's wrong. I've also heard 5 to 8,000. But again, that was based on a different group of people. So I like younger people and when they were at rest. We know as high achievers, we have more than 5 to 8,000 thoughts a day. So the craziest part is that the majority of them are negative. And neuroscience shows that we have this bias toward negativity. We're hardwired that way from early times when we needed to constantly be scanning for danger, right? There were physical dangers, maybe a saber-toothed tiger around the corner. Now, these days, we still feel that fear, but that more often stems from emotional dangers, like you need to prepare for a big meeting or that interview, or maybe you're trying to juggle all that you have to do for your family, or you have some friends who are in crisis. It's these fears that feed our sense of doubt. So just want you to acknowledge that. And although there can be fear and anxiety associated with those events, I don't want to minimize that, right? It's natural. It's your reaction to that fear that impacts whether you move toward your goals easily or if you're going to feel stressed during the process. So in order to move beyond these fears and negativity, a helpful approach is to tune into, identify, and understand these fears and thoughts. Then you can more effectively address them and continue taking steps toward your goals, while also actually feeling motivated to move forward. Now, the key is to remember we can't manage all of these thoughts, right? Don't worry, I'm not going to give you tools to make you think that you can manage tens of thousands, but we can begin to just observe them as they show up. And that's what I want to help you do. So in this spirit of observing your thoughts, the first step is to take a closer look at what holds you back in terms of limiting thoughts or beliefs. Or I'll say it this way, having a mindset that encourages you to habitually follow through on the self-imposed shoulds in your life, right? What part of you keeps making you follow the shoulds? With clarity on those thoughts or those types of things you might say to yourself, you can begin to bring that negative self-talk to the forefront and really see it for what it is. And that's important because it's those hidden thoughts we're not fully aware of that can be the most dangerous. They can be the ones that really drive our lives. So beyond identifying these thoughts, I want to share one of the first tools that can help you. It is really useful to create a persona around some of these more negative thoughts and mindsets to allow us to more easily and readily see them. Again, because we can't manage seeing a whole bunch of these thoughts. So I call this persona your saboteur. Get it? It's like sabotaging thoughts. I'm saying that because there's like one person who didn't get that and I never thought to explain it. But yeah, it's like what sabotages you. By identifying it, we can start to diminish its energy and the power those thoughts have over you. Finally, I'll share why taking these thoughts and shifting your perspective helps you to feel more excited to move toward your goals. So I'm going to walk through all these different steps, and an easy way to remember them is to notice it, name it, and reframe it. I like having little quick ways to remember these types of tools. So we're going to start with where you currently are, right? Now that we know how your mind works a little bit more and the importance of recognizing negative self-talk and the self-limiting beliefs, we're going to go through the 3 simple steps to be with and really understand and accept your saboteur, this side of yourself that holds you back. Notice I didn't say hate, push it away, right? Recognize it, be with it, and then move beyond it. And this is a process I use with my clients. So I'll walk you through that right now. First, you're going to want to start by thinking of a goal you want to achieve and when maybe you felt a little bit of struggle in moving forward. So maybe it's something currently or something in the recent past. And it could be as simple as, gosh, I would love to exercise more and create a routine for the workout schedule, yet you're not doing it. Or it can be a bit more complex, such as getting a promotion, starting your own business, or searching for that right fit job. And this next step in your career that you're trying to take can even be something you're excited about pursuing. I want to remind you of that. But again, you're still feeling some of those saboteur moments, and you might feel fear about it, especially there are outside circumstances, right, that could impact us. So I'm going to be quiet and give you a minute to think of that goal where you feel like some resistance in moving forward with it. And for today's purposes, if it helps you to try to think of the less complex goal, that's fine too. This will work, just in case that supports you, and then you can come back. So now that you might have it, we want to help you become more aware of the saboteur, right? We're going to go through the 3 steps of notice it, name it, and reframe it. So step 1 is to notice it. Think about more specifically what held you back from taking action toward the goal you picked. So if it's the workout, it's like, I don't have enough time. If it's for that job search, I didn't think I was experienced enough. Okay. And although we all have a sense of what negative self-talk is or what a deep sense of doubt can feel like, I just want you to be fully aware of the ways it can show up. It really shows up when you're doing something different or new, even if you've done it before. So many times I hear people say, like, oh, I worked out before, I've looked for a job before, right? But your brain forgets that, and it feels so different and new. In fact, I try not to skip more than 2 days of exercise, or I like to call it movement, even if I go for a walk, because if I skip the first day, I'm like, oh, I really want to work out, but I'm okay. Second day, I'm like, yeah, I really want to get some exercise in. By the 3rd day, it's as if I've never moved in my life. I'm like, who needs to exercise? Because our brain is like, oh, this is much more fun, right? So if that happens with movement and something you might have a habit around, can you imagine how it is with something that's a little bit bigger? So just take a minute to maybe jot down some thoughts or start thinking about them, I should say. And what you're going to notice is that what you're saying to yourself is something that it's like your fear of something new is overwhelming your desire for that fulfillment. Does that make sense? Like it's like the fear takes over. And remember, these thoughts you're having might not necessarily be true. They're stories you've made up. They don't necessarily serve you. And again, your saboteur, this negative self-talk, is going to tell you all the reasons why it's not a good idea to change. Like I said, it's better to sit on your couch, right? So I'm going to be quiet for another minute and let you think of some thoughts. If you feel like you have them, let me know. I'm just trying to change this lighting. It looks a little bright. Okay, so you might have some ideas. Even if you have a few, that'll be really helpful. So I'm going to go to an example in my life that I was thinking when I wanted to start my business. I was really afraid of starting it because I was concerned I would fail. And although I knew coaching was my calling, I was so excited to do it. I literally say to myself, well, I can't start a company because I don't have any experience running a small business. That's the tape I kept hearing, right? So that really was holding me back from taking the action I wanted. Now, again, I know you're going to probably need more time to write some of these down, but hopefully you have a list that is flowing like in that way. Or if does anyone need a lot more time? Is this making sense? Okay. Oops. So now that you have an idea of what your saboteur might say, we're going to move on to naming it. And in order to do that, we need to capture the essence of what it says. So you're going to look at your statements again, right? What you just wrote down. And imagine what someone would look like or dress like or move like if they said those statements. So when you start thinking of all of this together, like how they would show up, you could even come up with a name you would give your saboteur. If you need help, we could take a minute. I'm going to give you some ideas though, because I know this sounds odd, but having a visual picture of your saboteur will help you notice when these types of thoughts come up. Because again, you can't manage all of those thoughts. We're working with your brain right now. When you have an image, you can notice it. So again, this is helping with the observation or noticing phase. As an example, I'll share my saboteur with you. I'd like you all to meet mean old nonna. Now, this isn't to offend the nonnas in the world. My mom's a nonna, my sister's a new nonna. They're not all that way. And quite honestly, this was the one that I developed years ago when I was still seeing this side of myself as negative. You don't necessarily have to see it as a negative side. You could just see it as a part of you. But just to give you some background, when I first considered the saboteur thoughts that led to this, I noticed it just really revolved around being a perfectionist and, not making any mistakes. It's always crossing every T, dotting every I. And my saboteur's essence really reminded me of these older women in my father's village in Sicily. We would go visit, and I met them as older women, and they were always dressed in black, literally like a cloak of darkness. And they probably lost their husbands when they were young in the war. And this was a tradition there, right? You wear black the rest of your life. And they also had to take on a lot of responsibility when they lost their spouse while being under, like I said, this cloak of darkness. And I know this sounds dramatic, but it really captures my saboteur's essence, the side of me that's like, make sure you're doing everything right. You got to get everything right. And they probably felt like they had to be uber responsible given all they had to do to survive and to be there for their families. So again, I know this is what captures my saboteur's critical voice or that heavy feeling. Yours might be like a third grade teacher that was tough on you. It could be a public figure. It could be a TV character. It could be someone you know. I would not pick mom or dad, right? Or someone really close to you, although that might be part of the voice you're hearing. We don't want to associate it so closely to someone that you might care about. So if anyone is coming up with their names and wants to share, feel free. As you start thinking of your saboteur, I'm going to give you a couple more examples that my clients have uncovered to give you some more ideas. One client, this one always makes me laugh, George in sweatpants, obviously from Seinfeld. This woman I was working with was a hardworking attorney, and her intention was to work out after work and to devote time to her career search. But she'd come home every day after, trying to bill all her hours and do her work. And all she wanted to do was just sit on the couch, eat and watch TV, which, became that habit for her. and it started to feel safer, right? And more familiar. I love the saying he has, always do the opposite of what your instincts tell you to do. Thanks, George. Another version, I had another client, identifier saboteur, is the character Meryl Streep played in The Devil Wears Prada. She was that high-powered executive who wasn't very nice as she strived for success. So I want to be clear, this isn't who you are all the time, right? This isn't like your energy or how you want to show up, but it does show up at times, and it's helpful to acknowledge it. And it could even just be the judge or the critical one. If you have your play sheets nearby, you can write down your saboteur. And again, if anyone wants to put theirs in the chat, or if you have any questions at this point. Okay. I know this isn't always the fun one, but I promise it's a helpful tool. So now that you have an idea, hopefully, of the saboteur in mind, even if you don't have a name for it, you can think about it. I invite you to accept it and embrace it and say thank you. It's nice to officially meet you. Again, I know many of us might typically think, and this has been taught to a lot of people, you should really, push it aside. Of course, we don't want it to lead our lives, but sometimes when we repress it, it gives the saboteur more power. And there's no need to dislike or fight against this side of you or the thoughts associated. It was just created when you were younger to protect you, and it's still showing up. So we can move on to step 3 now. When you spot your saboteur, right, you're going to start noticing this. You'll want to move to step 3. And the way this works, just so you know, a lot of times when I'm working with my clients, initially, they might not spot it right away, right? We have a session maybe once a week, and we'll meet, and as they're talking to me, we start to notice, oh, that was their saboteur. And then slowly, it might be 5 days later, and they'll send me a note like saying something happened, and 5 days later, before our next session, they might be like, oh yeah, I noticed this thought, this is happening. And over time, the more you use this tool, I like to think of it, this has really happened to me, where it's almost like the words are coming out of my mouth of the saboteur, and I can catch it, right? So you're starting to catch this side of you sooner and sooner. And that's the beauty of it. With awareness, you can make a new choice. But I want to dive into exactly those types of things they're saying and what you could do with it. So this is, again, where we're going to reframe the thoughts, because knowing these thoughts, we have to reframe them, because knowing them, just saying like, oh, I'm not going to think that anymore, doesn't always work. You might have to actually replace them to stop thinking them. And so another option is to just shift your focus and replace these thoughts with a more empowering thought. And remember, everything in life has the meaning we give it. I don't know if you've heard that before, but everything in life has the meaning we give it. We have a choice about what we focus on. I'm just noticing in the chat, Lucy from Charlie Brown. That's a good one. Yep. A lot of characters. Thank you for sharing that. So what we want to do to help you start focusing on empowering truths for your inspiration, there's a specific way I work with clients that actually does work to move forward. And it actually, again, works with your mind. And it's based on neuroscience. Saying this because if you don't reframe these thoughts in the way that works with your brain, some positive affirmations can actually backfire. So I want you to be really thoughtful about this. And so what I have clients do oftentimes to find the positive reframe is say, okay, there might be a nugget of truth in this thought, And there might be a story I'm telling myself, right? So when I was going to start my business, I'd say I can't start a business because I don't have any experience running my own company. Well, the nugget of truth was, yeah, I didn't have any direct experience running my business, right? But the lie, the story I was telling was based on I can't start a business. How did I know that if I had never tried? So I'm inviting you to really notice that. And again, there's more steps you can take to get there, but I wanted to share that at a high level and just start focusing on more empowering thoughts. You have this power. Something else I did want to share is that you can also actually find insights in these types of statements. Okay. I say that because maybe they don't all require a reframe. Some of them might give you some information that could be useful. For example, I thought, why would I give up my stable salary in advertising? When this was back in the day, when really it was a recession, so there's no stable salary, but I would feel that way. Like I would hear that voice. People would actually tell me that, and I would hear that voice. So I thought about it and I'm like, wait, maybe I should listen to this voice for a second. So instead of reframing it, I thought to myself, well, I'll do what I do in my advertising business. I'll put together a revenue forecast, see how much money I need to make to really get this business off the ground. What budget, what expenses would I have? So that's something else you could do, is gain an insight. And at the end of the day, I just want you to be aware of this side of yourself and have the tools you need. That's weird. Do you see that my phone is on?
Sorry, I don't know what that is. I'm gonna just decline that, Rosie. And it looks like you're in the meeting in a separate.
Okay.
So I'm just
Okay.
you're not
That was,
requesting that, right?
I'm not what? No, I don't believe so.
Okay. 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 I'm gonna just
Okay. We'll move on.
okay, sorry.
No. Yeah. So again, just noticing these thoughts. I want you to have tools, and hopefully this first piece of it, just being aware of it, is going to help you move toward your goals. And when I learned that my saboteur was actually trying to protect me, again, I could listen to her in a way that informed my next step, but it was much healthier approach. And again, we won't have time to go deep today, but when working with my clients, we have some additional tools to help them process and be with their saboteur. So as we wrap up this side of yourself, remember to just observe those thoughts. Hopefully it'll be easier to identify them when they're associated with an image or a persona. And my hope is you just feel like you have a way or a tool to be with. I say be with because, again, we don't have to hate it, these negative self-talk and the feelings of doubt. And you don't have to judge them or yourself or repress them. Just be aware. Remember, you have a choice of what to focus on, and don't let your saboteur run your life. There's a way to feel some peace and minimize the power it seems to have on you. It seems to have a powerful hold, right? So if you're interested in continuing any of this work with your saboteur, I wanted to give you a couple quick tips that you can do after the presentation to diminish its energy. Again, think of some goals you're excited about and write down all the statements that hold you back from taking action, whether it's like looking for that job, promotion, personal life, finding love. Then if you can, ooh, are you seeing that? Are you,
Yes, I'm so sorry, Rosie. I don't know what is going on.
you know what? I saw someone needed
Yeah,
to be admitted and I let them in. So I possibly should not have done that.
yeah. I think maybe they're gone because I think I noticed the name. I apologize, everybody. So strange.
Oh, so I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah.
So for those of you who found it hard to get in, this is why we need to do that, I guess, right? Have all these ways that make it tough.
I'm so sorry. Did you have a lot more Did you
No, I
have?
just wanted to stop sharing so I could reshare if that
Oh,
person is
okay,
gone.
okay. Yeah, because I hope that goes off. Like I don't.
I think so because it's gone from my screen. So if that person is gone, I don't know. We'll find out.
Yes, and
Um,
I should know better than letting people in really late, but I always feel so bad, like if people are trying to join, because I let somebody in too. So
oh, okay. So it's not just me.
no, I apologize, everyone. That's just so silly.
I'm sorry too, but I feel like my saboteur, I'm going to just be honest. Like I felt the heat just rise up in me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm ruining the experience here. And everything's just fine, right? We all survived,
It's
right? Thank
fine.
you. Yes. Marissa and I will talk after this and be very upset with ourselves, but we'll move on. Okay, sorry, Wendy. Can you give an example of how to reframe a negative thought? Yeah, so I'll just go back to mine where I said, I can't, unless you have a specific one. It's I always use that example of, thanks everyone. We were just trying to be nice, no more. Um, so I always think of that one. I can't start a company because I don't have any experience running my own business. Um, the reframe was I first have to see the truth in the lie. The lie is I can't start a company. I didn't know that. I hadn't tried. The reframe I'm sorry, the nugget of truth was I didn't have experience running my own business. So then I asked myself, what are some more empowering thoughts? What else is true? Is another way to say it because it's hard to jump to the empowering thoughts. I'm like, what else is true? Sorry, some of you have heard this before, but I would literally sit there and I'm like, well, my dad, my brother, my brother-in-law were entrepreneurs. So I grew up, and they're older than me, right? So I grew up watching what it was like, what it took, what was involved with running your own business. Then I thought about the brands I worked on in advertising, and many of those were like, my bosses were really busy. I had to just figure out how to do P&L reports, revenue forecasting, all on my own. And I was doing that and then giving them the information to report up. So I started saying to myself, okay, wait a minute. I actually do have experience running a business. In my advertising job, I was learning how to establish relationships with clients. I was looking at budgets. I was helping people, businesses create goals and strategies and tactics to achieve them. So once I started hearing all of these empowering truths, I really believed it. And I could come up with that new statement that was, I have experience running my own business. I have, and if that doesn't feel right to you, you have to check in with yourself. Do you believe it? Because if you don't believe it, it's this is when it backfires, right? So you have to come up with a statement that you really do believe. And that's the key. And that's why I like, honestly, when I work with my clients, I ask them to show me the statements and work through it with them because I know sometimes it's hard to get there. And if they do, they don't always believe it. So, and then you want to say these statements out loud, feel them in your body. Like that's really going to get to your subconscious mind. And when you do that, I don't know if you knew this, 96% of your behavior is influenced by your subconscious. So that's why doing this process the right way is very important. Hopefully that helps, Wendy, that like reframing. Okay. So again, yeah, if you could say the new reframe statements, have a list of them, say them out loud every day and feel them in your body, you are going to notice a difference. Great. Thanks. Thanks, Wendy. Okay, so I have some other tips I'll share with you about being with your saboteur, but we'll send that in the follow-up email. So with that, we're going to keep going because I want to make sure we get all of our good stuff in. Oh, but I'm guessing, sorry, let me reshare. I almost forgot to do that part. It's kind of exciting that someone wanted to be in our, see that reframe?
I can't imagine why someone would.
like, they're like, where I'm gonna bust in on. And like
Right.
they could have really used the presentation. So too bad that we let them go. Anyway, sorry. All right, so yes, you have different tools, hopefully, to support you. Now we're going to move forward. And as we can see from what we've been talking about, we have a choice about how we can move forward in our lives. You really do get to decide. You're in charge. And that is such a liberating feeling. I'm going to share this extra thing because it just experienced this with a client and it just made such a difference in her life. I always talk about how people think we're happy when we have a certain result. We're actually happy when we feel like we're in choice. So remember that you're in choice. If you are not at a job that, you really didn't love and you've left, like, yeah, okay, you might say, or if someone broke up with you, you might say like, oh, I'm not in choice. Well, guess what? On some level, you really probably didn't want to be there. And now you have a choice to say, I'm excited to keep moving forward, right? I want to focus on what's next. Just notice that. And like I said, our mind is constantly working to provide us thoughts, right? As we said, tens of thousands of thoughts. So you are going to use your power of choice to begin to focus on more of what you want and the possibilities for your life. And the better we can become at focusing our minds on what we desire or even love and what feels good, the more likely you can stay motivated and the happier you'll be and inspired to take charge of your life, right? Now, research shows that when we're motivated and happier, we'll act in a way that is much more likely to attract the desired life results we want. Now, there's science to prove this, and we really don't have time to cover that right now. So I just like to think of it anecdotally. I love the way I act when I'm in a good mood, right? When we're feeling happier and lighter, I behave in a way that yields more positive results. So you know this to be true. All right. With that in mind, let's move on to the second exercise or tool that you can start using. It'll help you stay even further motivated, like I said, on a daily basis. And it's going to help ensure you're creating the kind of life results you're not only excited about pursuing, but ones that you're going to feel fulfilled by the outcome of them, right? They're not going to be the shoulds in your life. So again, we're not looking outside of us. We're going to go within. And since I'm noticing the time, we're going to keep this a little shorter. I usually do a longer guided meditation with my clients, but today I'm going to just have us explore in just a more abbreviated version of this. And it's going to help you get hopefully a little bit more motivated, feel a little bit happier. And we're just getting in the mindset of your best self, or I like to say your highest self. Okay. And hopefully you're in a quiet place, a place where you just are feeling comfortable. And I'm going to just have us do a little bit of a breathing exercise. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but so keep your paper and pen or journal or anything nearby, because I'm going to just have you jot down some thoughts afterwards. So if you can do this, put your feet on the ground. Ideally, if they could be planted in the ground. And we're going to take some beautiful energy from Mother Earth, okay? And I want you to just close your eyes and imagine. If you can feel this, it's even more powerful, but it could also help if you can't just say, I'm going to imagine this. Imagine there's something grounding you, like maybe two straws underneath your feet, going all the way through the earth, down to the middle of the earth. And it's going to capture and take that fiery energy of the earth, and you're going to breathe in all of that energy up through those straws, into your feet, and up through your legs. And I'm going to ask you to take another breath when you're ready. And breathe that in, up through your legs, and into your torso and your chest and your arms. And just feel that energy nourishing all of your cells. Now we're going to take another deep breath from energy in the middle of the earth up through the straws. into your legs, your torso, your arms, up through your head and past your crown chakra into what we're calling your higher self. It can live a few feet above you. And we're going to do it one more time, okay? Take that deep breath in. Imagine all of that energy. Maybe it's a color or light, and it's going through the straws, up through your legs, your torso, your arms, your head, up through your crown chakra, and to that higher point. And then imagine it's almost like that light, or I like to picture gold flecks floating down onto your body, nourishing your cells onto your head, your shoulders, your chest, all throughout your body. Recognizing that's where your higher self lives. That's the side of you that is so connected to your gifts and your talents. It's the version of you that knows anything is possible. And it connects you to who you can be. And from that place, ask it, who do you need to be to experience the goals you desire? You might mention 2 or 3 qualities. Maybe it's giving you some advice of how to get to where you are now, to where you desire. I'm going to be quiet for another 30 seconds. When you're ready, jot down whatever came up for you. Notice, like, what were the qualities you noticed? Was it confident? Was it to believe in yourself? Did you notice a different energy or essence about this side of you? They say again, our highest self lives above us. And when we're actually, a lot of our energy can be around our head, and that's where the collective consciousness lives. And that's when we're hearing all those other voices. That's why we're moving above. So from this place, you can also name this version of you. And if you've worked with me before, I know you've done this. So hopefully this exercise can help you reconnect with that version of you. If you haven't done this, I'll give you an example of how I started noticing I really wanted to show up in my life with more warmth and vibrancy and energy. And I first met this version of myself when I was after going through a divorce and working long hours in advertising. So to be this energetic self was very exciting. It didn't feel real all the time in the moment, but with time, I got more connected to the side of myself. And I had to begin with who I wanted to be. And so here's my example. My future self's name is Sunny. Some of you have met her before. And this version of myself, my highest self, she was exuding energy and warmth. And I wanted to come up with a symbol that captured that essence, and that's why I went with the sun. So when you think of the qualities that you connected with, you might want to say like, okay, what does someone who has those qualities, what represents them? It could even be like an archetype. It could be like Athena or the goddess of wisdom. It could be so many different aspects of you. It could be a public figure you admire, right? You just want to remember those qualities and try to capture the essence. a lot of people end up naming this version of themselves a nickname they had when they were younger. And in fact, I didn't remember this at the time, but I had forgotten my nephews had nicknamed me Sunny when we were all younger. So hopefully, if you want to share your examples in the chat, that might give other people ideas of who you are at your highest self. And if you need some time to think about it, this is a fun exercise to do with other people. Maybe just tell them like, hey, I just pictured myself and I was connected to my truth and I had these qualities. What would you name this version of you? And I say that because it took me a few days to name mine, but I had learned all about this in my coaching courses. And of course, I was able to name everyone else's. So give yourself some space to try to figure out who is it? Who can you be, right? And when you're being your highest self, can you attract more of what you love? And I started seeing that I could connect with this side of myself and ask her to guide me, right? When I heard those negative thoughts, what would Sunny say instead? And I just knew that this warm and loving side of me could show up more often in all areas of my life, even at my competitive advertising job, especially when times got tough in other areas of my life. So I really use this as a tool to connect with. And if you want to do that breathing exercise, that can help. So I know we went through that a bit quickly, but hopefully you gained some insight around this future self and that it actually, those qualities you saw, right? That version of you, that higher self, she's available to you today all the time. Those qualities are a part of you. We just need to tune into her more often. And you can use this as an energy source to tap into for guidance and direction anytime you want. For example, you can start building a relationship with her where in the mornings you can connect with your highest self. Or if you're struggling with a scenario, again, just say, what would Sunny do in this scenario? And what I've noticed in 18 years of coaching is when former clients come back to me, they more easily remember the saboteur than their higher self. So interesting to me, and maybe because it does take up more space in our minds, and it's a really useful tool, right? Recognizing your saboteur. But I really invite you to get to know this higher self of yours. Build a relationship with her. And I'll give you some other tips and tools to stay connected with her in that follow-up email. So you'll get a little tip sheet and you'll see how to really just recognize when the saboteur is showing up and then when your highest self is showing up. And any questions at this point? No? Okay. I just hope you can start seeing there's so many more possibilities for your life when you're connected to that version of you, right? Versus our other version. And then here you could have, I just wanted you to have all the information in one place. And when you do that, you're more likely to see and accept different aspects of yourself, right? So if you have your handout, you could write everything down there. Honestly, sometimes back in the day, I used to just keep that piece of paper right by my desk so I could see it and be reminded of it. And then you can remember to focus on what you want to experience, right? If you think about your highest self, you're more likely to focus on the goal. And then your mind is primed for what's possible. You may have heard of this before. This is how gratitude works. If you are constantly scanning for the negative and what's not working, you'll see that your brain is taking so much information in, it needs to filter the information. So what are you going to choose? The saboteur filter or your higher self filter? And I know this is easier said than done. I get it. Because again, there's so much pull from that other side. But if you can accept both sides, get to know them, you will gain so much from that, right? And remember, this is a practice, it takes time, and it's a process. And what matters most in this world, because you're going to hear a lot of things from a lot of people, is how you see yourself, right? So just keep connected to your real best self. And the idea is to have that version of you show up more often than your saboteur. I want to make that clear. I know I keep saying accept your saboteur, but we can't get rid of it. So just aim for progress, not perfection. And ideally let that side lead you. And I really feel like that's when you can become more of a happier high achiever, as I like to call it. So here's your formula, right? Is to connect with your best self while accepting your saboteur. And then I like to say in this process, what you're doing is you're discovering who you really are, and you're going to feel more authentic. So automatically you start feeling a different energy with this authenticity, right? We're not trying to hide our negative side. And you start to open up to aligning with your truth or your higher self more often. And I've actually created a program that helps you do that. It's called Discover and Align. And this is where I help my clients get to know these different sides of themselves so they can achieve their goals, but in a new way, in a way that feels more natural and organic. So I hope you can use these tools together and start to notice how you can stop over-engineering your life, right? Stop letting the limiting beliefs drive you. And when you do that, the things that you don't need, they start to fall away. And again, you'll be left with who you are. And then you can attract more of what you want, making your life ideally flow more easily and experience more joy along the way in every moment. And that's very important, as we know, right? We want to experience joy in the moment, not at the end. So I wanted to give you some tips on how you can stay accountable for yourself and just to make this happen, because I know it's frustrating when you can, show up to a webinar like this and you're like, okay, I've got these tools, and then what am I going to do with that? We know what happens the next day. Maybe the excitement fades or we forget how to use these tools. So one thing you could do is tell a friend, like create an accountability partner about what you learned. Sometimes that helps. Or, like I said earlier, make an effort to connect with your higher self daily. And I'm going to give you tips on how to do that. And I know it sounds woo-woo and crazy, but it really makes a difference. You might even want to block out time in your calendar to do it. And then if you can surround yourself with a supportive community, there's people in your life that beyond the one accountability partner, maybe they can help you really remind you of this side of yourself. You might have to give them permission to do that because sometimes we don't like that unsolicited advice, right? So you have to create that agreement with people. And of course, I'd love to support you in any way I can. So I have some ways that I can do that. But at the end of the day, we just want you to, again, get to know these sides and of yourself, get aligned with your truth so that you can attract what you want, but in a more natural way. So please stay connected if we're not already on social media. I'm on all the usuals, LinkedIn, Instagram. I have the YouTube channel, Facebook, and then you can also sign up for complimentary consultation if you'd like. I'm happy to go through some of this and dive deeper with you. If you know me, you know how to get in touch with me. I'm happy to talk to you if you're already a part of the Inner Brilliance family. If you are new to me, there is a no obligation, consultation here. I just want to help you really connect with these sides of yourself, especially since I feel like we had that interruption. I'm like, okay, but it was the perfect timing. It was in between. It was like transitioning. So that's the good news. But yeah, if you want to reconnect and really better understand how to learn more about that higher self, set up a consultation, or if you want to learn more about this Discover and Align program, all of these links, I will put them in the chat so you have them, but you will have them at the end of the play sheet, and I will put them in the, I'll also put them in the follow-up email. I'm laughing. I just clicked. There it is. I'm like, where'd the chat go? And with that, I just, yeah, I'm sharing the time tray. What else did I want to share? Oh, yes, I want to give you the new program in case you have questions about that. And with that, oops, I just really hope that you feel like you have a little bit of inspiration. Like I said, we can stay connected, and you know that you have tools to support you. You have tangible steps that you can take to get results you want while feeling a little bit more joy along the way. So thank you, everyone.
Um,
Thanks, Fran.
I'm gonna turn off the recording. Just if anyone does have any questions, I know sometimes it impedes like questions that people want to ask. I'm just gonna turn it off. We're just about at time, but we're happy to answer any questions that anybody has. And I'm going to put in the chat, this is something new for us. We have a really quick feedback form. It's a Google document. If you have time to just go ahead and fill it out right now, we'd love to have you do that. It should be really quick. I'm just going to put that in the chat.
Do you want me to stop the oh yeah, once I guess we'll hit if you want to put it in the chat, that way it hits the recording. And yeah, I'm happy to stay if anyone has questions or like I said, clarification. Thanks, everyone.